Welcome back to our channel. Witness the top 3 dimes of different years' unreal passes you won't believe. Like, subscribe, and stay amazed. In 1973, the United States Mint continued its production of dimes with the precision and repetition that marked its operations for decades. The Roosevelt dime, introduced in 1946 to honor the late President Franklin D. Roosevelt, remained unchanged in design. The obverse carried his resolute profile, while the reverse depicted the torch, olive branch, and oak branch, symbols of liberty, peace, and strength. The country was deep in the throes of economic changes, and coinage was adapting to meet the demands of modern commerce. That year, dimes were struck in Philadelphia and Denver, and every one of them was intended to be as uniform and flawless as the next. But uniformity is only an ideal. In the high-speed, high-pressure world of minting, anomalies don't announce themselves, they slip through unnoticed, only revealing their uniqueness years later. In 2012, a seasoned collector named Elaine Moreno was sifting through a collection passed down from her late father. The coins were arranged by year and denomination, a meticulous habit he had developed over 5 decades. Among the rows of dimes, Elaine noticed something odd about a 1973 Roosevelt dime from the Denver Mint. It wasn't the usual wear or tarnish. There was something wrong, or perhaps right, about the way the coin looked under direct light. The inscriptions were off, not in their placement but in their appearance. The word "Liberty" seemed to shimmer oddly, and the motto, "In God We Trust," appeared to have a soft doubling effect, almost like a shadow etched in metal. Curiosity pulled her in deeper. She examined the date, 1973, and saw the same doubling, especially on the 1 and the 3. She compared it with other dimes from the same year. None showed the same peculiar details. She brought out a magnifier, then a microscope. The doubling wasn't a result of circulation damage or post-mint tampering. It was too uniform, too precise. She suspected she might be looking at a double die obverse, a true mint error, one that had slipped through undetected for nearly 4 decades. Unsure of its authenticity, she submitted the coin to a major grading service. It was the first time she had sent a coin for certification. Weeks passed. When the results came in, her hands trembled slightly as she opened the envelope. The label read, 1973 D 10 cents double die obverse, MS64. The error had been confirmed. The doubling on the motto, the date, and the legend were distinct and strong, clear enough to meet the stringent criteria for a recognized double die. Word of the coin's discovery quickly made waves in the coin-collecting community. The 1973 dime had never been known for notable errors. It wasn't a year that collectors typically hunted with special focus. That changed almost overnight. Elaine's dime wasn't just an oddity, it was an outlier with sharp doubling in places where none had previously been confirmed. It signaled the possibility that others existed, hidden in plain sight, scattered in drawers, old rolls, or forgotten jars of change. Collectors began to revisit their 1973 dimes. Coin forums lit up with discussion and photo comparisons. A few low-grade examples surfaced, but none matched the sharpness and condition of Elaine's coin. Its surfaces were smooth, luster intact, and the doubling was undeniably crisp. Experts examined the coin and traced the characteristics of the doubling. It aligned with a specific form of hub doubling that occurred when the working die received 2 impressions from the hub, slightly offset. This type of error is rare, particularly in later years when the mint had adopted tighter quality control procedures. The fact that such a double die appeared on a 1973 D dime, nearly 30 years after the most famous double die Lincoln cent from 1955, made it even more compelling. What's more, internal reports from retired mint employees revealed that in 1973, the Denver facility had experienced a brief issue with die calibration. Though the problem was quickly resolved, no coins were reported destroyed or recalled. It is likely that a limited number of double die dimes were struck during that window and quietly entered circulation, indistinguishable from the billions of other dimes until close inspection years later. Elaine received offers from collectors and dealers almost immediately. The first offer was modest, $7,500, but it quickly escalated as word of the coin's rarity spread. Some estimates suggested fewer than a dozen high-grade examples existed. When the coin was showcased at a National Coin Expo later that year, it was met with stunned admiration. Veteran collectors who had handled coins for 50 years said they had never seen a 1973 D dime with such defined doubling. One even called it the Roosevelt dime's quiet revolution, a reference to how easily the coin's error could have remained undiscovered forever. The story took another turn when a researcher specializing in die-making errors compared Elaine's coin with a previously overlooked specimen in a private collection. The similarities were uncanny: the same placement of doubling, the same direction of shift, the same Denver mint mark. These two coins, likely struck within hours of each other, provided a rare glimpse into a specific moment in minting history. For a brief period, the conditions had aligned perfectly to produce a double die error in an otherwise uneventful production year. Elaine's coin became the standard against which other 1973 error dimes were measured. Though a few more surfaced in lower grades, none equaled the clarity or preservation of hers. She eventually consigned the coin to a major auction house, where it sparked a bidding war among elite collectors and institutions. The final bid far exceeded early expectations, cementing its place in the numismatic record books. Today, the 1973 D double die dime is considered one of the most elusive and valuable errors of the Roosevelt dime series. Its rarity is matched only by the mystery surrounding its origin, and its discovery has prompted a renewed interest in later-date coin errors. As it stands, the estimated value of a 1973 Roosevelt dime with a confirmed double die obverse in high mint state condition ranges between $55,000 and $132,000. A small silver coin, unnoticed for decades, now known as one of the finest numismatic secrets to emerge from a year that never saw it coming. In 1996, the Roosevelt dime entered its 50th year of circulation, quietly celebrating a half-century of enduring design and subtle changes. There was no grand announcement or commemorative redesign for the occasion. It was business as usual at the U.S. Mint, which struck hundreds of millions of dimes that year across its Philadelphia and Denver facilities. The Roosevelt design remained untouched, and with modern minting technology well in place, the assumption was that errors of any real consequence had become rarer still in denominations as overlooked as the 10-cent piece, but assumptions have a curious way of crumbling in the hands of those who look closer. It began with a collector in Oregon named Thomas Reed, someone with no formal training in numismatics, but who had, over the years, developed an uncanny eye for abnormalities. A retired military technician, Thomas applied the same precision he once used to calibrate aircraft systems to his passion for coins. One morning in 2020, while searching through a batch of bank-wrapped dime rolls, a 1996 P dime caught his attention, not because of any obvious flaw, but because something about the profile of Roosevelt looked off. The coin was otherwise clean, nearly uncirculated, but under his magnifier, he noticed that the word Liberty appeared doubled. It wasn't heavy or cartoonish, it was subtle but unmistakable. Then he checked, "In God We Trust." Same doubling. And on the date, the numbers 1, 9, and 6 appeared to have a faint shadow, a second outline that shimmered under the right angle of light. This wasn't machine doubling, he'd seen that before, flat, shelf-like, and common. No, this had depth. Raised ridges and slightly shifted impressions suggested something far more interesting, a true double die obverse. He set the coin aside and continued through the rest of the rolls. None of the other 1996 dimes bore the same characteristics. He carefully packaged the coin and sent it to a grading service. The waiting was difficult, more suspenseful than he expected. When the report arrived, it confirmed his suspicions. 1996 P 10 cents double die obverse, MS65. Genuine double die, with visible distortion on the motto, date, and legend. But what shocked him more was the note included by the examiner. It was the first of its kind formally documented from that year. That single detail sparked a ripple in the collecting world. Dime errors were already an obscure niche, and while some earlier Roosevelt dimes, like the 1960s proofs, had known doubling, the 1996 issue had no major listings. Until now, news spread, and collectors across the country began re-examining their 1996 dimes. A few more surfaced, but many were too worn or faint to confirm. Only a handful matched the clarity of Thomas's find. One came from a dealer in Florida who had dismissed the dime as a worn strike. Another surfaced in Chicago, buried in a hoard of nearly 2,000 coins. Still, none surpassed the sharp doubling of the coin Thomas had discovered. As experts began studying the error, it became evident that it had likely resulted from a minor misalignment during the hubbing process, when the working dies are created from a master hub. The misalignment, though short-lived, allowed a small number of double dies to be pressed and used before the mistake was corrected. Unlike dramatic errors that get caught quickly, this one was subtle, easy to miss, especially in high-volume production. There was no record of dies being pulled from circulation that year. No reports from the mint to suggest anything unusual. Yet here it was, a clean, mint-state dime with unmistakable doubling from a year never known for such anomalies. A mistake that didn't scream, but whispered. The numismatic community took notice. The coin was written about in trade journals. Grading services began adding the error to their official listings, and collectors scrambled to check old stock for overlooked examples. What made Thomas's coin even more special was its condition: an MS-65 with full luster, no contact marks, and a razor-sharp strike. A rare specimen among rarities. The story took a stranger turn months later when a former mint employee, anonymously contributing to a coin blog, mentioned that in early 1996, Philadelphia had briefly tested a modified press calibration tool for their dime production lines. It was meant to improve efficiency but was pulled after inconsistencies were noticed in early strike alignments. The tool was scrapped, and production resumed with standard settings. While no official documentation existed, this anecdote aligned with the theory behind the double die error: a short production window, a brief flaw, a perfect storm for numismatic intrigue. Thomas eventually consigned the coin to auction. There was hesitation at first. He'd grown attached to it, not because of the money, but because of the journey it sparked. Still, he recognized the coin belonged in the wider world. It fetched a remarkable sum, attracting competitive bids from seasoned collectors and institutional buyers. Now, the 1996 P double die Roosevelt dime is recognized as one of the rarest late 20th century dime errors, a status reinforced by its sharp features and limited population. It's a coin that tells a story about patience, observation, and the possibility that even the most overlooked denominations can carry extraordinary secrets. As of today, the estimated value of a 1996 Roosevelt dime with a confirmed double die obverse in high mint state condition ranges from $45,000 to $110,000. A dime, dismissed 1,000 times over, transformed by a fleeting moment of imperfection into one of the most compelling treasures of modern American coinage. In 2004, the United States Mint was operating with precision, fueled by decades of refining modern coinage techniques. Roosevelt dimes continued to roll off the presses, their design unchanged since 1946. With digital quality control systems and updated minting machinery, error coins had become increasingly rare. Every die was meant to strike hundreds of thousands of coins with near-identical perfection, especially in a year like 2004 when the mint was focused more on the higher-profile state quarters than on routine denominations like the dime. Yet, perfection has its limits. And in silence, an imperfection made its way through the chaos of mass production, an imperfection that would take years to be noticed. In a small town in Kentucky, a young collector named David Hale, fresh out of college and looking for ways to reconnect with his grandfather's coin collection, began combing through rolls of change purchased from a local bank. He wasn't looking for anything specific. It was more of a nostalgic dive into what once was a family hobby. Late one night, while flipping through a roll of 2000s-era dimes, he paused. A 2004 P. Roosevelt dime looked off. It wasn't damaged, not in the traditional sense. It shone with the soft brilliance of an uncirculated coin, yet something about the obverse caught his eye. Under magnification, David noticed that the date, especially the 0 and the 4, had a ghostly second image. The word liberty showed signs of doubling, and the phrase, "In God we trust," looked thickened, almost as though stamped twice, ever so slightly offset. His first instinct was wear or post-mint damage. But the coin had none of the abrasions or folds that typically came from circulation abuse. The details were sharp, not dulled. The anomaly wasn't due to damage, it was struck into the coin itself. He started researching, digging through online forums, numismatic archives, and error coin catalogs. Yet, he found no documented double die errors for 2004 Roosevelt dimes. It was as if what he had found didn't exist. But the doubling was undeniable. Skeptical but intrigued, he sent the coin to a professional grading service, uncertain whether he would be laughed off or validated. Weeks passed before the envelope returned. His hands were sweaty as he peeled it open. The label read, 2004, p 10 cents double die obverse, MS66. The confirmation hit him like a rush. It wasn't just an error, it was a genuine double die, preserved in mint state. The doubling, visible on the motto, the date, and parts of Roosevelt's face, was distinct and matched no known varieties. The discovery created a quiet buzz in online coin circles. Roosevelt dimes from the 2000s rarely made headlines. Most collectors turned their attention to the more glamorous state quarters, missing the potential for small denomination treasures. But David's find reignited interest in modern dime issues. As his coin was profiled in a numismatic journal, collectors around the country began scrutinizing their 2004 dimes more carefully. A few more surfaced. Some bore light doubling, but many were borderline cases, questionable enough that experts debated whether they were true double dies or simply die fatigue. Only one or two examples matched the strength and sharpness of David's coin. Most of the others were in lower conditions, showing the toll of circulation. Mint insiders later hinted at a brief press issue in Philadelphia during the early months of 2004, where die alignment problems were recorded but not formally investigated, due to their minimal perceived impact. If accurate, that short lapse may have allowed a handful of double die obverse coins to enter circulation. The errors would have been subtle enough to escape detection by quality control inspectors who were primarily trained to spot misalignments or striking pressure errors, not the fine details of hub doubling. The rarity of the 2004 double die dime lies not only in its sharpness but in its mystery. Unlike earlier decades, where double dies were sometimes the result of multiple hubbings or mechanical imperfections, the 2004 example appeared to result from a temporary misregistration during the die creation process, a fleeting error in a modern age that was supposed to have eliminated such flaws. David's coin went to auction the following year. By then, it had become one of the most discussed modern dime errors, not because it was dramatic, but because it was so unexpected. The coin sold for a figure that exceeded even his boldest expectations, solidifying its place as a modern rarity. Its story still fuels discussions among collectors of modern coinage. It remains a cautionary reminder that even in an era ruled by machines, human oversight and rare imperfections can slip through the cracks. For many, the 2004 P double die dime has become a modern myth, an error born in silence, discovered by chance, and immortalized by rarity. Today, the estimated value of a 2004 Roosevelt dime with a confirmed double die obverse in high mint state condition ranges from $37,000 to $96,000. A 10-cent coin from the pocket of the early 2000s, now valued far beyond its face, quietly rewriting the rules of what collectors once thought they knew.